Good news, everyone. The amount of your student loan does not matter. Hey everybody, Peter Billigus here for the Peter Billigus channel, where we always, hopefully, make finance fun. One question I get a lot is, how much can I borrow on my student loans? Or how much can my child borrow on their student loans? Well, there are two answers to this question. There's how much you can borrow, and then there's how much you should borrow. But I'm here to tell you the amount of your student loan does not matter. Yeah, you heard me. The amount of your student loan does not matter. In a moment, I will answer both of these questions and I will explain why the amount of your student loan isn't really important. But before we get there, I do want to say this. There are some financial education professionals who will tell you that you should not borrow anything to go through college. These experts say either find a way to get through college without any debt or find a different college. Or don't go to college at all. Get a stable, family-friendly career like juggling fireboxes. I mean, it's an option. Now, the individuals who say that all debt is bad and that you should never borrow any money ever, well, they're not wrong. If you have no debt, it's pretty hard to get into financial trouble. If you have no debt, you can't go bankrupt. Paying off debt is also a tax-free strategy. You don't get taxed for reducing your debts. And while some debt might come with a tax deduction, that deduction is only making the debt a little bit cheaper. It's still debt. Paying off debt is also risk-free. When you invest, you have to consider, is the market overvalued? Am I getting a good deal on this property? Are the financials of this company solid? But with paying off debt, it's easy. You can't lose any money paying off debt because you're already losing it. It's a simple, hassle-free, tax-free, risk-free way to improve your financial life. There are folks in the financial education world who have helped hundreds of thousands of people turn their financial lives around with one simple rule. Pay off all debt immediately, then never take on any more. Very simple, but very effective. That all being said, there are a few times in a person's life when, in my humble opinion, I think debt does make some sense, and a student loan can be one of those times. If you worked your butt off and got accepted to Harvard Medical School, that's not Harvard Medical School, that's a log cabin in the woods, but okay, we'll go with it. If you worked your butt off and you got accepted to Harvard Medical School, but you needed to borrow $20,000 to go, I say go. If you needed to borrow $50,000 to go, I still say go. But wait a minute. How do I know that? I mean, how do I know it's worth borrowing $50,000 to go to Harvard Medical School? Is it worth borrowing $50,000 to go to whatever school you are looking at? How could you know? Well, in a minute, I'm going to show you how you can determine that for any college in the country. But first, let's take a moment to answer a simple question. Why go to college at all? In my college speeches, I ask this question to students in the audience, many of whom are borrowing money to be there. When I ask this question to my college audiences, I get answers like, to get a good job, to learn, to get into graduate school, to network. I've even heard answers like, I'm going to college to meet my future spouse. Yeah, plenty of fish in the sea, just remember that. Well, I agree with all of these answers, well, most of these answers, but really they can all be summed up with one response. There's only one reason to go to college, and that is to increase your opportunities. That's it. That could be in the form of networking, or getting a good job, or even meeting the love of your life. Again, you can branch out, meet some new people. Now, I bring this up because debt decreases our opportunities. If I graduate college with no debt, and I want to spend a year working part-time and volunteering part-time, well, that's easier to do if I don't have to worry about paying off my student loans. But if I graduate with $200,000 in student loans, then I don't have a lot of options. I'm going to have to take the highest paying job I can find, wherever that is, and whoever it's for. So we go to college to increase our opportunity, but debt decreases our opportunity. The more education we have, the more opportunity we should have, but the more debt we have, the less opportunity we have. It's just important to keep in mind how these two forces work against each other. Okay, so let's get back to the question at hand. How much can you borrow? And how much should you borrow? Well, how much can you borrow depends, but the short answer is, if you really want to work the system, you can borrow a lot on your student loans. You can borrow way more than you actually should. And when you think about all the non-traditional ways of borrowing money for college, such as using credit cards or home equity lines of credit, you can really borrow a lot of money. But should you? How much should you borrow? Well, again, the first thing we need to remember is that debt decreases our opportunity. But getting specific, is there an equation you could use to help answer this question, how much should you borrow? Turns out, there is. Before I tell you the equation, there is something important to remember about the world of finance, and that is this. In the world of finance, numbers aren't really that important. I know that sounds strange. It seems like finance is all about numbers. But the reason the amount you borrowed on your student loans doesn't matter is because that amount is just a number, and numbers don't matter. Let me prove that to you. Suppose I said my rent is $2,500 a month. Is that a lot? Well, now suppose I said my rent is only $1,500 a month. Is that a lot? Or suppose I said my business had $1 million of revenue last year. Is that a lot? Suppose my business had revenues of $1 billion last year. Does that mean I have a solid business? Well, the answer to all those questions is, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because numbers don't mean much. But ratios mean everything. A ratio, if you slept through 4th grade math, is just a comparison of two numbers. One number doesn't mean anything until you compare it to another number or another piece of data. If I told you my rent is $2,500 a month and I live in a 4-bedroom apartment in Manhattan, well, that's a great deal. If I lived in a studio apartment in rural Wyoming, well, $2,500 a month is ridiculous. If my business had $1 million in revenue, but $1.5 million in expenses, well, that's a terrible business. If my business had $1 million in revenue and only $200,000 in expenses, well, that's a great business. So numbers don't mean much until we compare them to other numbers or other data. Ratios couldn't be more important than in the world of student loans. Is $25,000 a lot of student loan debt? Well, we don't know because numbers don't mean much. What matters are ratios. There is something that I like to call the student loan payment ratio, and what this is a ratio that deals with your student loan payments. Here's how it works. Whatever your student loans are or will be, first calculate your monthly payment. There are a ton of websites that can help you calculate your monthly payment, one of which is my own website, peterbspeaks.com. But just go ahead and type in student loan monthly payment calculator in your favorite search engine. It should allow you to put in your student loan amount, your interest rate, and the number of years to pay it off. Then it will tell you what your monthly payment will be. Even if you don't know what this number is yet, it's okay to estimate based on the college you are looking at. Now, whatever that number is, doesn't really matter because numbers don't matter, ratios matter. The next number we need is the starting salary of your target career. You can go to any one or even all of these wonderful sites and find out the starting salary in the field that you're looking at. Now remember, we're trying to be conservative here. Many websites offer a salary range, so be safe and stick to the lower end. Take that starting salary and divide it by 12, and you now have your monthly salary. So now we have the amount of your monthly student loan payment and the amount of your monthly salary in your target career. All you need to do is divide your monthly payment by your monthly salary. If your monthly student loan payment is $345 per month and your estimated monthly salary is $3,650 per month, then we divide 345 into 3,650 and we get 0.0945 or roughly 9%. As a general rule, the amount of your student loan monthly payment should not be more than 10% of your gross income. This ratio can help you determine how much you can borrow without getting yourself into too much trouble. This is a great exercise for current college students and soon-to-be college students. It's also a good exercise for parents and students to do together because it forces you to see your student loans not isolated on their own, but as part of a larger financial picture. In my travels across college campuses over the last 15 years, I did run into someone who had more than $400,000 in student loans. Now I know that number is staggering, and even I don't know how she borrowed that much money. But in reality, that doesn't really matter. What matters is the ratio. This woman happened to be studying to become a heart surgeon, and her starting monthly salary would more than cover her student loan payments. Now we need to remember a few things about this ratio. First of all, a lot of people will mess it up, not because they do the math wrong, but because they overestimate their future salary. I mentioned most websites will give you a salary range, and when people look at salary ranges, they tend to look at the highest salary in that range rather than the lowest. Keep in mind, one of the reasons these salary ranges vary is because of geography. A history teacher in Manhattan is going to make more money than a history teacher in Montana, so please be conservative with your salary range. The other challenge, of course, is that often people change majors and then they also change careers. You might borrow a lot of money thinking you're going to make big bucks as a corporate lawyer, but after spending years reading thousands of pages of legal documents, defending big corporations, and never actually speaking to a client, you might find that corporate law is not really for you. So you take a job doing that. In this case, the student loan ratio worked as long as you remained a corporate lawyer. It didn't work for that. And what is that? And are they hiring? Because I'm actually looking. I'm punctual, I work well with others, and nights and weekends are no problem. By the way, another great ratio to consider is that upon graduation, your total student loan debt should not exceed your annual income. So if you borrowed $50,000 over 4 years, but your starting salary is $48,000, well, you have borrowed more than your annual starting salary, and that's bad. The salary should be more than the total debt. So remember, education increases opportunity, but debt decreases opportunity. These two forces work against each other. Second, in the financial world, numbers don't mean much. What matters are ratios, the comparison of two numbers or two sets of data. Third, there is a simple formula for judging how much you should borrow on your student loans. Simply figure out your estimated monthly payment, then find the starting monthly salary for your target career. Divide your monthly payment by your starting salary, and you get the percent of your salary that will have to go to student loans. This number should be less than 10%. Another simple ratio to calculate: your total student loan debt over your entire college career should not be more than your starting annual salary your first year out of school. Now, you can still get into trouble even if you follow these ratios, but they're at least a starting point to use as a guide. If this video was helpful, please click the like button. For more videos that make finance fun, please subscribe to the Peter Billigas channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.